personality on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Secretaries condemned anti-Semitic behaviour during the Armistice Day demonstration in London. Hundreds of thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters marched peacefully through the capital yesterday, but the Met Police says it's actively investigating a number of possible cases of hate crime. Suella Braverman's described some of the chants and placards as sick, inflammatory and clearly criminal, and has called for further action. She also praised officers for their handling of the disorder after right-wing counter-protesters who were trying to confront the rally clashed with police. The force, which arrested 145 people yesterday, has confirmed 7 have been charged with various offences. Meanwhile, British Transport Police is also investigating a racially aggravated altercation at London Waterloo and has released photos of 4 men it's trying to identify. They also want to speak to a woman over an alleged anti-Semitic hate crime at Victoria Station. Meanwhile, the Home Secretary, who attended today's remembrance service, is being blamed for stoking tensions ahead of the pro-Palestinian protests. During the week, Suella Braverman described the demonstrations as hate marches and questioned the integrity of the police for allowing yesterday's rally to go ahead. Well, the King has led the nation observing a 2-minute silence on Remembrance Day, honouring fallen soldiers. The Prince of Wales was among the senior royals to stand behind King Charles, with the monarch wearing the uniform of the Marshal of the Royal Air Force. He laid a wreath similar to the one produced for King George VI. The Prime Minister and the Labour leader were also at the cenotaph in central London, alongside several other senior politicians and dignitaries. Hamas says it's suspending hostage negotiations because Israel is targeting a major hospital. The Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City has come under intense fire as Israeli forces close in on the site. Israel claims Hamas is using the facility as cover for a command centre, which the terrorist group denies. Meanwhile, Palestinian health officials say 13 people have been killed in an airstrike on a residential building in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, where people in the enclave have been told to relocate to. Weather warnings have been issued for Northern Ireland, England and parts of Wales as Storm Debbie approaches. It's the 4th storm of the season. Heavy rain and gale-force winds of up to 80 miles an hour are expected. Earlier this month, Storm Ciarán caused widespread flooding. The yellow alerts will be in place from 3 a.m. tomorrow morning until 6 o'clock in the evening. And the Prime Minister's marked the start of Diwali, the Hindu festival of light. Rishi Sunak was joined by his wife and 2 daughters, lighting candles at Downing Street. The family placed them around the steps of number 10 for the start of the 5-day celebration. It's believed the placement of lamps and candles outside homes protects against spiritual darkness and brings good luck. Well, this is GB News, live across the UK. I'll be back with more a little later this evening, but now it's over to Free Speech Nation.
Another musician is cancelled for acknowledging biological reality. Protesters are openly anti-Semitic on the streets of London. And the Northumbria police threaten a woman with arrest for holding legally protected beliefs. This is Free Speech Nation. Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. This is the show where we take a look at culture, current affairs and politics, and of course we'll have the latest from those lovable eco-zealots this week. Just Stop Oil attempted to become the modern-day suffragettes by smashing up a painting with hammers. We're going to get to that later, but coming up on the show tonight, singer-songwriter Louise Distrauss has been cancelled by the music industry and will be here in the studio live to have her say. The leader of the Climate Party, Ed Gemmell, will join us to share his disappointment in the not-so-environmental-friendly King's speech as plans to boost North Sea oil and gas drilling are confirmed. Plus, hear how an ex-maths teacher who was fired for not calling a child by their preferred pronouns has had his career completely stalled and what he intends to do about it. And of course, myself and my fantastic panel will be answering questions from our studio audience. My comedian panellists tonight are Francis Foster and Bruce Devlin. How are you both? Yeah?
Good, how are you?
I'm OK. You were recognised in Tesco this week, weren't you?
I was, and do you know who I was? It was a lovely, it was a club card bottle of gin, and guy came up and said, "Are you from?" And I went, "Not in here." And then, do you know who I was having drinks with last night?
Go on.
Alex Kingston of ER fame.
Of ER fame? I'm afraid...
Yes. Ah, yes.
No,
exactly.
that is impressive, but I've never seen the show. But I'm sure it is very impressive. Isn't it nice that Bruce gets recognised for GB News? Not in Tesco, though.
He didn't actually say it was from GB News.
It was, though, wasn't it?
It was the cafe.
It was...
I'm often in. No, it was from GB News.
It was from GB News.
The guy came up to me and he said, I really appreciate everything you do with Andrew Doyle. And I went, well, I don't sleep with him.
He doesn't know the half of it.
No, exactly. Tricky.
Francis, are you recognised in Tesco?
No, mate.
Waitrose for you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, mate.
OK. Well, look, we've got this great audience here, so let's capitalise on them to the full. We've got some questions. Our first question comes from Jason. Jason, where are you? Hi, Jason. Hi.
Are the Northumbria police breaking the law?
Yeah, this is an interesting story. The Northumbria police, they effectively, there was a lesbian who was interviewed under caution by Northumbria police. What she said is that trans women are men, which is, of course, as we know since the Maya for Starter case, a legally protected belief. But what the police said is that they would arrest her if she didn't come for interview. And, of course, this is a bizarre one. What do you make of... Bruce, have you read into this one?
I have read in, and I've maybe said it before on the show, I was a similar thing after doing a gig on a train where I had to go down to Cumbria because a hate crime was reported against me. You'll love this.
Really?
Yeah, sustained and aggravated homophobic abuse. All I said was, bitch, please.
I think you get away with that phrase.
But they built a case and I had to go down with my friend Julianne and be interviewed under caution. And do you know what the man said? I've never heard of you. And I said, I've not heard of you either. And we got on with this. He took swabs of my DNA and all that kind of stuff.
But this was in a comedy
This was
context.
a gig on a train, yes.
I mean, that is absolutely... I didn't know this about you. That is insane.
I thought I mentioned it before.
No, that is absolutely
insane.
You did,
he just wasn't listening.
I wasn't
listening. But this is sober tonight.
This is unbelievable, Francis. I mean, look, you know, the thing about this situation with the Northumbria police is they must know the law by now. We understand that a lot of police officers in the past didn't know the law, didn't quite grasp the law. But in this case, they must know. Since the Maya for Starter case, it is not... These are legally protected beliefs. You can't arrest someone for it.
Why are you assuming that these police officers are going to be competent?
Well, because I want to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
you know,
but we should stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. Look, these police officers love nothing better than trawling the internet, finding something that really offends them, for instance, a limerick,
yes,
and then bringing people in.
Well, that's what happened with Harry Miller, of
yes.
course. That he retweeted a poem which someone found offensive, and so they visited him. But the difference then was they hadn't had the Maya for Starter ruling, so they didn't know. Maybe there was, you know, I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. They didn't know the law at that point, but they do know it now. And I've read the transcript of that interview with Northumbria Police, and it's quite clear that this does not in any way fall into the bracket of malicious communications, as they claim. So why are they doing it? Some people, I mean, fair cop are making the point that this just looks like intimidation and bullying.
No, to me what this is actually ideological. It's people who believe in this ideology, who believe that, you know, that people can magically change their sex, and that if someone says they are something, then they should be affirmed. And if you don't do that, therefore you are hateful, and therefore you need to be prosecuted, and the long arm of the law needs to come and clamp down on you. Plus, it's much easier to do that than arrest a rapist.
OK, fair enough. What about you? I mean, Bruce, did you end up being actually charged? You weren't charged?
Yeah, it came back as no further action, NFA, because I had to get... Because obviously you have a different law system in England than you do in Scotland, and I had to get a lawyer in Carlisle. But the police were really nice at the end. We all had a laugh. They took us to Marks and Spencer's. We got our carry out for the train. It was all good in the end. It just was a huge waste of time.
But is it just that the police feel they have to do this because the regulations aren't clear?
But the funny thing was, I'd said to the woman who was dealing with me, I said, so what if I don't come? She went, we will send a car for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
But this is a comedy set.
Yeah.
I mean, people say a lot worse on stage.
That's the thing.
You included, actually. I heard you say a lot worse than that.
Camden, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
People were crying.
Goodness me. In fact, Bruce is going to be on my club on Tuesday, so I dread to think... Just keep it clean, OK?
Rich.
OK. Now, this, by the way, is a statement that was tweeted out by Northumbria Police, so we should read this. We are aware of commentary on social media relating to a report of suspected malicious communications. As we continue to look into this matter, it would be inappropriate to comment any further. We did invite Northumbria Police to appear, but they declined. So our next question now is from Alan. Where is Alan? Hi, Alan.
Hi, guys. As one of the last surviving Conservatives in the Tory party, do you think Suella Braverman is actually trying to get herself sacked?
OK, Alan, what do you think? I mean, do you think that she knows full well that she's sort of representing the right of the party and that that's where the party's going?
She is. I think she's correct in saying what she said. Rishi can't get rid of her because I think there's probably about 50 Conservatives left in the party. I think they may leave en masse if they get rid of her. So
you say she was right about what she said. What specifically are you referring to?
Well, the march.
The march, yeah.
The fact that it started peacefully and they walked past the end of my road.
Right.
So I had 300,000 peaceful guys saying the wrong thing at times, that walking past the end of the road. On the way back,
yeah,
we had about 50 of the police vans in Grosvenor Place. We had troops of police chasing these violent guys up and down the roads. They were having fireworks fired at them. You never saw any of that on the news.
Fireworks at the police?
Yes. So, from the balcony, I was just watching this. It was like a balcony seat.
So this is kind of astonishing. I feel you want to come in here, Bruce.
Sorry, the thing happened to me on the district line. I was going into Soho, I know, stereotypical, and there was these big guys with, like, facial tattoos and whatever, archetypal, we were just saying, whatever. And they weren't necessarily doing anything, but I think the police were really scared, because at one point our carriage just got blown open, not by an explosive or whatever, but by troops of police that came in, they were armed, they got the guys off the train was held up because they were trying to disturb the train and all this kind of thing. That was quite scary yesterday.
Well, tensions were very high. I mean, and we've got some footage of what's going on there. Now, the thing is, Francis, a lot of the people out protesting were doing so peacefully, and it is really important to emphasise that. It's a minority of people who don't. However, to deny that there were certain... For example, I saw some footage of some very anti-Semitic remarks, placards, some very disturbing things being chanted. Now, my point about this is, yes, you can say that is a minority of these protesters, which it is, but why aren't the majority around them saying, shut up, stop doing that, you're bringing our movement into disrepute? Why is that not happening?
Because if someone's wearing a balaclava and being openly aggressive, you might think twice about confronting them. And look, I agree with you. The anti-Semitic abuse was so bad at one point that I thought I was watching the Labour Party conference.
Francis, outrageous.
And that is the real tragedy of this, that people were being openly hateful, openly anti-Semitic, and nothing was done.
So that's the issue, isn't it? I think if you're at a rally or a movement or something, and if I was at that sort of thing and someone said something that was so egregious, I'd object, or at least I would expect others to object. I wouldn't go along with it. So that's the issue, isn't it? That it seems to have become normalised within the movement, these extreme expressions. And they are extremes.
But it's all polarised.
Yeah, it's totally polarised, No, I think, and it is difficult for the police in this situation, but they do have to apply the law, don't they?
Well, the problem is I was talking to somebody who's a photojournalist, and he was actually working the marches, and he said there was so many people chanting these slogans, not from the river to the sea, where there's an argument that could be made and blah, 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 but openly anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
That...
What do you do at that point?
What can you do if there's literally hundreds of people chanting it? You can't arrest them all.
It's a difficult one. I'm going to be talking to Nadine Strossen later about this idea of free speech, including for the anti-Semites and people like that. What do you do in that situation? It's really hard. But just to go back to Alan's question, Suella Braverman, do you think she's trying to get sacked?
I think it's impossible to know. But what I think she is trying to do is she's trying to make a name for herself. I don't understand how it would work for her to be sacked, because the reality is Rishi is not going to stand down if he loses a general election.
You don't think?
No, I don't think so. I remember when we interviewed David Davis on my show Trigonometry, he was actually saying that, he voted for Rishi because he was far and away the best candidate.
Right. It's very interesting to see where the Conservative Party is going to go in the future, but we'll keep on top of that. We've got a question now from Ryan. Hi, Ryan. Hi.
Hi, good evening. Is Anne Frank offensive now?
Yeah, this was an incredible story. So this is a German kindergarten. It's called the Anne Frank Kindergarten, and they've said they're dropping their name because they want a more diverse alternative. What the hell is going on?
So I misread that because I think they were complaining about the fact she didn't have an open-plan kitchen diner, which, if you are selling a house, because she lived in that house for ages...
That's actually not what it is, Bruce, no.
En suite, and there was none of those facilities.
You've been to the house then, have you?
I've been to Amsterdam. I went to someone else's house.
I'm sure you did. What do you think, Bruce, about this? I mean, you know, this is a girl who died in a concentration camp. The name of Anne Frank, it's kind of important that her story is out there. The idea that that she's offensive all of a sudden, how can that be?
Well, exactly, because, I mean, that was her reality. So why are you denying someone's reality? And why do you think by expunging all this to the history vaults, or not even in the history vaults, you know, can we not keep it in the public, you know, domain?
Well, I actually don't understand what's going on here. Do you understand why?
Yeah, I understand what's going on.
How is that not diverse? The Anne Frank kindergarten, explain.
Because she's not a trans woman of colour, therefore she wasn't oppressed.
Is that what it is? It can't be that, can it?
It probably is.
No, Francis.
Look, when you see these things, you have the stupidest point, the stupidest reason is always the one that they go to.
Really?
Yeah, and you know they're going to go, yeah, but, you know, she had white privilege, so was she really oppressed?
I mean, that is astonishing. Actually, people have said that.
Yeah, of course they have.
You joke, but I've seen that from activists say that sort of thing.
What was she in the house for?
I have no idea. I've read the diary, but I don't remember how long she was in there.
You know, there's some people who actually argue that Martin Luther King was a coconut.
Was racist. I know, I've heard it.
Yeah,
yeah, OK. I know we're in that weird clown world, as they call it.
Yeah.
We are there now, so we may as well get on with it. OK, we've got a question now from David. Where's David?
Thank you.
Hi, David.
Hi. Have young people forgotten about Remembrance Day?
Yeah, apparently. So this is a poll that says 2/3 of young people don't know what Remembrance Day is commemorating. This is an Ipsos poll. Now, and they're going for millennials, but they're between people born between 1981 and 1996, and those who were Gen Z between 97 and 2012, and they don't know what is being commemorated. Who are they asking? I'm sceptical about this poll because that can't be true, can it?
Well, you say that, but we've used to gig up and down this country doing comedy clubs.
Yes.
And there are some audiences you think you could ask them their name and they wouldn't be able to tell you that.
So it's just mass stupidity generally. Do you think it's a young issue? Do you think, I mean, how can you not know what Remembrance Day is about?
I think it depends on how old their parents are and if their grandparents had anything to do with it and if it's something that's talked about in the family, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just, fair enough, but it's still something that is talked about on the news all the time, in papers, in magazines.
I would have thought it would have come about in schools,
yeah,
but
exactly.
then probably not.
OK, kind of amazing. We've got time just for one more question from Marcus. Where's Marcus? Hello.
Is the Scottish Government trying to indoctrinate kids?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So the government have said that children need to, and this is their quote, not mine, read woke. In other words, studying books. They're giving books to primary schools which make these incredible claims like racism was invented by white people because they wanted to dominate people of colour, etc., etc. Some of these really sort of American, as you can imagine, American books. Now, Francis, the thing is, I've had a look at some of the quotes in these books. Some of it is just crazily overly simplified, completely lacking in nuance and promoting this very racially divisive view of the world. The programme itself was called Read Woke, which is weird because people keep telling me woke is a right-wing slur or whatever. Well, is that what's happening there?
Well, the thing that I find really interesting about this is Scotland. This is like the whitest nation on earth.
Yes.
And you're doing this. There's practically no ethnic minorities in Scotland. So what are you trying to achieve?
Yep, well, Bruce, you are the representative Scot.
Am I?
Apparently.
No,
yes.
thank you. I just saw Joanna Cherry in the station.
Yes, of course. Well, she's not on the show, though, Bruce,
No,
so I can only talk to you.
Comment. She's Scottish. It's all on a theme. Pay attention.
Sorry. Tell me what you think about this, Bruce. Do you think there is a risk of when you give children books that have a particular ideological slant? I mean, shouldn't children be exposed to all viewpoints?
I think so, but I think as well, I struggle with what the definition of woke is. My understanding is that it was a 1950s term in which to call out racial inequality.
Used to be, yes.
Used to be. But now it's very much if you're vegan and read The Guardian and all that kind of stuff.
That's how it's been interpreted.
Hemp leggings, then you're woke.
I think what really happened was that the word was hijacked in around mid-2010s by activists who believe in this sort of hyper-divisive worldview. And so, therefore, the word became associated with that kind of authoritarian, getting people censored, getting people fired. So the word has been through these evolutions, as I've spoken about many times. In fact, what I would advise everyone who is confused about the definition is to watch The Dinosaur Hour, which is tonight at 9 o'clock with John Cleese, and he talks to various experts in the subject and he clarifies what it means, how it evolved, where it originated from. It's a very, very interesting show, and by pure coincidence, I was the producer on that show. Anyway, next on Free Speech Nation, singer-songwriter Louise Distress, cancelled by the music industry, will be here in the studio live to have her say. Don't go anywhere.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie, second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GBNews.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. Louise Distress is an independent musician who's been in the music industry for 10 years. Her career highlights include touring the world, performing at the Glastonbury Festival, and being named Kerrang Star of 2017. However, her artist profile has now been removed from streaming platform Bandcamp due to comments she made about trans women. So, is this a star fallen from grace or a victim of cancel culture? Let's have a look at some of her work. I'm delighted to say that Louise Distress joins me here in the studio. Louise, hello. So, now, firstly, I must admire your T-shirt. Turf is the new punk, with an image of Pankhurst. Do you want to explain what that means?
Well, turf is a slur, but I think it's a badge of honour, so I thought I'd put it on a T-shirt with Emmeline Pankhurst, and my friend, the famous artist Birdie Rose, she designed it for us.
Fantastic. Yeah, because it's interesting, the phrase TERF, people might not know, trans-exclusionary radical feminist, really does mean just witch now, doesn't it? It's a way to sort of attack women, effectively.
Yeah.
And interestingly, Elon Musk said it was a slur on Twitter, so he wasn't going to tolerate it. Anyway, leave that aside. You've been in the business for a long time. You've been making music for a long time. Tell us when did it all start to change? What happened?
Well, I released my new album, Beauty After Bruises, in April of this year. And it's about not self-censoring and about honouring the parts of ourselves that we look away from. And when I wrote this album and recorded it, talking about my music and talking about my own life meant being able to talk about being a woman. And nowadays, everyone's asking, well, what is a woman? And everything in my life starts with me being a woman, and being a woman's an adult human female, right? So I stated this radical biological fact in an interview in May this year, and since then, the music industry's just shut its doors on me. The platforms that championed me have now denounced me as a Nazi and as a transphobe. I'm being threatened by trans rights extremists. One of them tracked down my address and turned up at my home.
Wow.
I had to go to court and get an injunction. The police are investigating this. There's an ongoing police investigation. So I asked my booking agency, Midnight Mango, for help to keep me safe at my gigs. And I got an email from the managing director, Matt Bartlett, and he didn't acknowledge that there was a risk to my safety whatsoever.
Even though someone's turned up at your house?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. What he said to me was, he said, look, our position as a company is clear. Trans women are women. And if you continue to publicly deny that trans women are women, your position will have a detrimental effect on your musical career.
Wow.
Yeah.
But this is kind of astonishing, because since the Maya Forstater case, we know that that belief that you've expressed is protected by law.
Yeah.
So he is engaged, potentially, in a form of discrimination there.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
So why is that? Why is this going on? Because obviously, for a lot of your critics, they'll say, well, woman isn't a biological category, it's an identity category. But of course, 99% of the country don't agree with that. And we also know that the belief in biological reality is protected, as I say. So why is it that this view in the arts has really taken hold, particularly in the music industry?
I think it's well known that the music industry is very misogynistic, and I think that that's given room for these ideas to grow and for women's rights and women artists, you know, the rights of women artists to get trashed along the way.
But in terms of punk, wasn't punk always about saying things that are outside the establishment norm, expressing yourself when it's not necessarily the fashionable view? Wasn't it always about taking different stances?
Sure, but I think it's gone the other way now, and I think that it's punks that love the government and that are doing the government's work for them.
That's sort of astonishing. And it shouldn't matter what any artist's opinions are. Surely the whole point of art is you're going to get multiple worldviews, right?
Sure. I mean, you know, my attitude is the same now as what it's always been. I'm just like, look, here's me, here's my music. If you don't like it, you can naff off, you know?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Let the audience decide who they want to listen to and who they want to buy tickets to go see.
That's a key point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let the audience decide. Because when you have companies like Bandcamp withdrawing the option for people to make their own decisions, that's a kind of authoritarian way to go about, isn't it? What's happened with Bandcamp there?
Well, so 2 weeks ago, I was deplatformed by Big Cartel and Bandcamp within the space of 24 hours. Bandcamp didn't notify me, they didn't give me a reason why. My discography and all the revenue in my artist account just disappeared into thin air.
That's incredible. Now, Freedom in the Arts have made comments about this, haven't they?
Yes, they have,
This is the group headed by Denise Farmy and Rosie Kay.
That's right.
Who I spoke to last week. They've actually got a statement here from them. So what's going on there?
Well, Freedom in the Arts have published an open letter to Ethan Diamond, the CEO of Bandcamp, and they've asked him to protect freedom of speech, reinstate my artist account, and pay me the flipping money that they owe me. Well, I've got bills to pay.
Well, there's the financial element, isn't there? But there's also just the principle, as you say, of letting the audience decide.
Yeah, and also, you know, since the pandemic, the arts has really suffered. The music industry suffered. A lot of live music venues have closed down, and I feel that what's left of the industry is now being kicked to death by these intolerant activists who are shutting down and threatening anybody who dares to disagree with them or who won't bow down to these insane demands of ideological compliance. And these companies like Midnight Mango and Bandcamp are more than happy to, you know, cut off their own legs as some kind of sacrificial offering to the rainbow gods.
Yeah.
And you know, and destroy artists' careers in the process. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. You know, the music industry is supposed to be built on freedom of expression.
It's interesting, a lot of people were shocked, I think, about what happened to Roisin Murphy.
Yeah.
You know, very high-profile artist. Gigs were cancelled in London. And there was a lot of aggression online towards her for stating something on her private Facebook page, which wasn't controversial. It was the position the NHS now holds, which is that puberty blockers have a problem. There's a problem with them.
Yeah. What I find incredible is that Roisin Murphy's album is actually still on Bandcamp.
Interesting.
Yeah, they haven't banned her from Bandcamp.
So is it the case that lesser-known artists are the ones that really are at risk here?
I think that it's been happening for a long time, but people aren't necessarily aware of it.
Yes.
I mean, my personal belief is that the music industry's just so captured now, it's completely gone, and artists don't necessarily realise that there's another way. You know, my personal belief is that... yeah, I just think we should just let it die, and I think we should just let all the cowardly artists go down with the ship. I mean, I'm not the only one that this is happening to. And I'm just one of a growing list of artists who are being cancelled, but we're all coming together to build a new industry with a proper counterculture where artists, and particularly women artists like myself, you know, will get to have a proper say about our own lives and our own work without the fear of violence and emotional and financial ruin. I think that's the only way forward.
Well, very, very well put. Louise, before you go, can you just quickly tell us about your new album and where we can get it?
Well, what I would say is put Louise Distress into Google and the good and the bad and the ugly will come up. All the filth and the fury. I've got louisedistress.com is where you can get all of my music. And also, if you want one of these spiffy T-shirts, turfisrenewpunk.com.
Fantastic. Louise Distress, everyone.
Thank you.
And next on Free Speech Nation, the leader of the Climate Party joins us to discuss the not-so-environmentally friendly King's Speech. Don't go anywhere. I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Fed up of being patronised and bored to death by other afternoon news shows? Me too. So I thought, if you want a job done properly, do it yourself. News as it breaks on TV, radio and online. All the big debates and the best guests on the topics that you actually care about. Whether you're having discussions with your mates down the pub, in your van to and from work, or around the dinner table with your family, that's the kind of stuff that this show is all about. Join me, Patrick Christie, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
No, thank you.
my CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. Having previously been accused of political meddling as a green-fingered heir to the throne, it's fair to say that the once outspoken Prince Charles adopted a neutral tone in his first historic speech as king this week. King Charles III remained poker-faced as he confirmed North Sea oil and gas licences. Let's take a look. Oh, no, we don't have that package. Apologies. Well, let's see what Ed Gemmell makes of this. He's the leader of the Climate Party, and he joins me now. Ed, welcome to the show. Before we begin, Ed, some people might not be familiar with your party because it's relatively new. Where are you at the moment?
Well, we launched on the 5th of September last year, so, 5th of November, the same day as Liz Truss took office, so we've already outlived one Prime Minister, so that's a good start for a new party. We're there to make sure that Britain takes advantage of the commercial opportunities that come out of the opportunity moving towards solving climate change, as well as standing very pure on the science.
Right.
But it's very much about the opportunity. This is the biggest commercial opportunity that's coming. It is so obvious that we have to be going there. It's so obvious that the rest of the world is going there, whether we want to go there or not, that we should get ahead and lead it.
Where does the party stand, left or right? Where is it?
We're very much more so centre and possibly centre-right. I mean, that's where we're going. We're out there for that sort of 60% of people that sit in the central ground of politics, but also for those that are not on the extreme right, let's say, of the Conservative Party. So we're also out there representing them as well. And we think that because we're talking up the economic opportunity and explaining it properly, that they'll gravitate towards us.
Can I ask you specifically about that? Because I think a lot of critics of net zero, they will say, well, you know, these kind of measures will invariably impact the poorer in society. So they might say to you, what economic opportunities?
I think it's very obvious when you look at it, and we played this out in Uxbridge, talking to a lot of ordinary people on the street, actually, and explained, look, for the last 40 years, we've been rowing back on all of our manufacturing opportunities. We've outsourced everything. China's making everything now, but not just China, very many other countries around the world, and we're not making things. So we used to have 25 to 30% of our GDP was created from manufacturing. It's now under 10. We now have massive deficit in our balance of payments between what we import from others and what we export. I mean, China's just one example. Roughly speaking, we import 70 billion worth of from China, and we export about half that. So we've got this awful balance of payments now because we don't manufacture anything. So what we're saying is it's absolutely happening. You don't have to believe in the climate change issue, you have to believe in the climate change opportunity. There are almost 150 countries have set net zero targets. Whether that's the right thing to do or not actually doesn't matter. We're going in that direction, and that's where all the money is going to be made in the coming years and the coming decades. We've got two choices: stay at the back, pay everybody else for it, which is currently what we're doing, or get at the front, roll our sleeves up, make it our national mission and start making money out of it and make the money here rather than other parts of the world.
So I can see the emphasis that you're going for here, but do you actually have a view on whether, for example, groups such as Just Stop Oil are right, that we are facing a complete Armageddon in the near future?
I think if you're looking at the science, when 99.9% of the scientists say that we've got a massive problem, we have to get on and act on it. And it's just like, I see a gentleman actually shaking his head. It's people there who don't believe their GP. I mean, if you went to your GP and 99 out of 100 GPs told you had a problem, you'd go and get the action taken on it. And GPs are scientists. So we've got to accept that and just get on with it. But we don't even need to accept it, because the commercial opportunity is so high, and we should be chasing that anyway.
It would be interesting to hear what the gentleman in the audience has to say about it. But who is it who's shaking his head in a grumpy way? Do you want to say anything?
I didn't say they were grumpy. Good shaking their head.
Yeah. Well, do you have any view? Do you want to grab the mic and say what you think about that? What would your objection be?
Well, let's drop our net zero and manufacture things for the rest of the world. You know, China is increasing their output of pollutants while we're dropping ours. We are very obviously shooting ourselves in the foot. You know, net zero was never voted on by us or anyone in Parliament. It was pushed through. It was never costed. It still can't be costed because the technology required to do it doesn't exist yet. You know, it's a piped dream which is damaging.
Right, let's hear...
99.9 is just...
Thank you for that contribution. Let's hear Ed's response to that.
25 different things added into one there, so I can't really respond to every single one of them in a few minutes on here. I think the first thing about it is that We know the direction of travel, as I said, and we've got to get ahead of it. Now, we can either allow China, as you alluded to keep doing what it's doing. It's making something like 57% of the EVs at the moment. It's doing more than 50% of the solar panels. It's doing more than 70%. It's
making the pollution.
One second. It's making more than 50% of the wind turbines. It's making 50% of the batteries at the moment. It's controlling 90% of the processing of the rare earth metals. It's making shed loads of money by us all getting to net zero, OK? And we're not doing it because we're at the back and we're prepared to just pay cheap prices to China rather than innovate here and get ahead. And what is very, very different, and I do a lot of speeches in the city, when you talk to people who've got the money, they're looking for the opportunity to invest in decarbonisation here. They see it's coming, they know it's coming, and we can either, as you're suggesting, let's slow it up, let's not go there so quickly, or we can accelerate it and we can get the innovation and the finance here.
So we've got two very different views there, which is very interesting. But let's just bring it back to the King's speech now. How did you feel about what happened there?
Well, obviously, the King was presumably chomping on the words when he came out and talked about the oil and gas licences. I mean,
we know what he feels.
We know where he's been for the last decades. And not commenting on all of it, let's comment on the oil and gas licences. Obviously very disappointing, although we knew it was coming. And particularly disappointing when you go back to the 20th of September, when our Prime Minister made his speech where he rode back on some of the net zero policies. But in that, he said he was unequivocal in making sure that we fulfilled our agreements to stay under 1.5 degrees. Unequivocal. So he absolutely committed us, said, we are definitely doing this, there is no question whatsoever. And then after telling us that, he goes out and suddenly rows back on oil and gas licences and things. I mean, so the optic of it is he's out there saying one thing, presumably trying to capture one section of the voter, and he's out there doing another thing, trying to capture another one. I think it was spineless, selfless, political manoeuvring, just done for him and his party's own self-interest, not thinking about us and the opportunities that come for us in driving forward and leading the clean industrial revolution.
From what you're saying, that you seem to believe that there isn't really a principle at the heart of the Tory policy, that it's really about harvesting votes at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about harvesting votes, and I mean also because there's not much they can do in the course of the next year anyway. So I think that would be obvious to pretty much everybody. But in fact, even in the effect of this oil and gas licence rollback, over the 50 years that we've been issuing oil and gas licences, we've had 33 rounds of licensing. So actually saying it's going to happen every year isn't actually changing anything very much, but it's providing an optic. So it's going out there and saying what he thinks he's about, creating a dividing line, rather than changing anything hugely material.
OK, Ed, we haven't got much time left, but what would you like to see happen now?
I think on the oil and gas licences, if I can just come in on there, I'd like to actually see them doing what they say they're going to do. They're talking about these oil and gas licences helping us on the path to net zero. Like, we all want to have more money in our pockets in this country and a better economy. We all want to have energy security, and in fact, we'd all like less pollution as well. So why don't we get the authority that's issuing the licences to say, fine, we'll let you go out and do the oil and gas, but zero carbon. OK, so get it out of the ground and don't have any emissions, because we're not against the energy, we're not against the opportunity, we're against the emissions. And then you get out there and you make sure it's zero carbon when we start burning it. And instead of this rather pathetic carbon capture and storage thing, where we're saying we're going to bring 30 million tonnes out of the atmosphere in our main clusters by 2030, let's ramp that up 10 or 20 times. Let's lead the world. Let's get the innovation done here. Let's make it get done. Let's get the city financing it, and let's start us positively benefiting.
Very interesting, Ed. I would love to have you back on the show to have more of a debate about these issues, but we're out of time. Thanks so much for joining us. Ed Gamble, everyone.
Thank you.
And still to come on Free Speech Nation, why the career of a former maths teacher is now left hanging in the balance because of his view on pupil pronouns. See you in a few minutes.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. A former maths teacher who found himself sacked for refusing to call a child by their preferred pronoun is still unable to get a job in teaching more than a year later. Kevin Lister taught maths for 18 years before he was dismissed for gross misconduct. Ex-maths teacher and bad law spokesman Kevin Lister joins us now to explain what happened. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andrew.
Now, Kevin, you've been on the show before, you told your story, but a lot of people watching won't know about it. What happened to you?
So, yeah, just a quick summary. So, I had a student, she was 17 years old. She tells me that she wants to change her name. I raise it as a safeguarding, change her name obviously to a male name. I raised a safeguarding concern. The college completely ignored the safeguarding concern, then took a series of actions to encourage the risk that I was warning about. So I then obviously did not support her desire to be referred to as a boy. Things kind of quietened off there, and eventually a friend subsequently decided to have a go at me and tell me that I had to call her a boy and then put a complaint in against me. At the same time, I raised a second safeguarding concern that related to a member of staff who boasted in a training session how many students that she had directly supported to transition. So I raised that as a safeguarding concern. That was ignored, and then for all of that, I was then branded as transphobic and then dismissed.
So a lot of people would say that if you're not affirming that pupil's chosen gender, that you are causing that pupil emotional and psychological harm.
Correct. And what's basically happened is the college have then referred me to the LADO, and then from the LADO to the DBS, the Disclosure and Barring Service. Part of that justification was that I was right-wing. Because I did not confirm her, then it makes me right-wing.
I wasn't aware that being right-wing was against the law anyway.
Apparently so.
OK, but this issue has nothing to do with left or right, as it happens.
Of course, but that was the justification.
Sorry, Kevin, just to clarify, when you say that you raised a safeguarding issue, what do you mean by that? Where is the risk here?
Yeah, so as a teacher, if you have a safeguarding concern, you have a right, duty and obligation to raise that concern and for that concern to be investigated formally. My concern is that if I was to support her belief that she is a boy and encourage her to adopt a male persona, it then starts that social transition. The next stage is easy for her to move on to, which is to start self-medicating, perhaps with testosterone. This is all easily available stuff now. You can buy it in any gym. So as soon as you encourage somebody down that route and you reinforce that view of them that they are in the wrong body and that the she should be a he, you open the gateway then for that really fast, smooth transition, and that's well documented in the Cass Review and elsewhere.
Well, that's very interesting. You mentioned the Cass Review. This is the interim Cass report, which made made it clear that actually social transition, where they say you just affirm the gender through pronouns and names, that in itself is not a neutral act.
Yeah.
So you have backing for this.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So under Section 100 in the Employment Act, what I'm arguing is that I have acted in a way to try and ensure the safety of the child by not doing the affirmation.
But you were fired for this.
And I was fired for this. And
so where's your claim going now? Because presumably you're taking a stand.
Of course, yeah. So it's due in the Employment Tribunal on the 18th of March next year.
Yes.
But in parallel to that, I've also been referred to the DBS, as I was saying. So there is a danger, for example, now that I could win in the Employment Tribunal, but the DBS could still accuse me of a safeguarding violation.
Now, we will both know, because we've been in the teaching profession, a lot of people won't know, the DBS, the Disclosure and Barring Service, everyone has to do this if they apply for a teaching job.
Correct.
But all sorts of things can be flagged on that. Even, by the way, non-crime hate incidents, which are nothing. That's just when someone makes a complaint, usually for ideological reasons. And what happens, I suppose, is the school will see that and just not take a risk on that candidate.
Exactly. So just this last week, I applied to another school, and I didn't even get an interview because I had to confess to them that I am currently under review by the DBS. They haven't yet confirmed, but the process of review is taking so long that no school is ever going to recruit me. At the moment, that review process has lasted 10 months. So I was referred in February this year.
Yes.
10 months this review has been ongoing. In 10 seconds, you could have seen that this was just malicious nonsense.
So this is the problem, because your critics will say, yes, but you are legally allowed to work. This doesn't bar you from working. The reality of it is that when a headmaster or headmistress gets this application and the DBS thing flags something, they just won't bother with the interview, right? Is that
not a chance. Exactly. Not
and
a
you've got your letter on screen here. You've made this exact point.
Yeah, that's right.
So it is a kind of preemptive punishment.
It is. Yeah. They make the process the punishment.
Yes.
So fundamentally, the DBS have got two options. Option one is that they agree with the accusation against me, with all its absurdities. Option two is they say, well, actually, we can't agree with this. It is so absurd. I mean, things like I cause emotional harm to a transitioning child, absolute rubbish. Things like I refer to the fact that transitioning is irreversible, which is one of the accusations against me, which we know it is, but that was a safeguarding accusation against me. So the second option for the DBS is that they look at that and they think, actually, we can't support this. There's no way we can uphold this safeguarding consent. If they do that, they have, I would have thought, a moral obligation to say, this is so ridiculous and a child has been harmed that the school itself should now be under the DBS cosh.
So what is it you hope will happen at this point? That firstly, the tribunal will go your way.
I hope the tribunal will go my way.
But then could the DBS be forced to a position where they can scrub it effectively?
I honestly don't know what the relationship is between the DBS and the tribunal. I don't think anybody else seems to know either. This seems to be in uncharted territory.
Yes.
I think the thing now is to expose this in its maximum publicity and spotlight so we possibly can.
Yes.
It was interesting, actually, earlier on, you had the discussion about Anne Frank,
yes,
which I think has got incredible parallels to this. So in Holland, the Dutch were extremely socially progressive. One of the things that they did was they decided that they could best manage social equity in the country by getting the best records possible. When the Germans took over, the first thing that they did was got the records, and then they found the Jews, and Anne Frank ended up dead along with many others. And this is the same kind of thing, that we end up with this DBS system as a response to the murders of Jessica Chapman and Holly Wells.
Yes.
And we built this system up, which is now perfectly at risk of being abused in the way that it's being abused just now.
But that's an important point, that this was a well-intentioned thing. You know, that man should not have been employed in a school. Like, he was a risk.
Yeah, yeah.
So we do need some sort of safeguarding measure.
Of course. I'm 100% behind that, and you know, I've used the safeguarding processes. But what I'm highlighting here is that well-intentioned data collection that the DBS was meant to be is something in this environment that our society is moving towards is a tool that can be used effectively now to suppress free speech and to cause safeguarding harm.
So when is the tribunal?
So the tribunal is 18th of March next year.
So in the interim, you're just in limbo, really?
I'm in complete limbo, yeah.
And this is affecting a lot of teachers, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And if I go the whole way, if I get done by the DBS on the safeguarding accusation, it says to the rest of the country, don't raise your head above the parapet on this at all, or in fact on any other issue. You know, this is a complete tool where we can see any kind of free speech, any kind of debate, any discussion in schools completely and utterly destroyed.
Yes, I mean, that's the issue, is it intimidates other people and they feel they can't speak anymore. Very interesting. We're going to be keeping an eye on your case. Kevin Lister, everyone. Thank you. That is the end of the first hour on Free Speech Nation. Don't go away. There's a lot to come between now and 9 o'clock, including the topic of the Israel-Hamas conflict. Don't go anywhere.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Hello there, good evening. I'm Jonathan Vautry here, your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Many of us will be waking up to a very unsettled start to the new working week, and that is due to Storm Debbie. This area of low pressure that is very quickly going to deepen overnight and into tomorrow, producing some very strong winds, particularly directly on the southern flank of that for northern areas of England, coastal areas of the Irish Sea. Throughout this evening, we do have one band of rain sweeping its way across Scotland, but it's this rain in the southwest that is associated with Storm Debbie. Some very heavy pulses for England, Wales and into Northern Ireland, where it could be very persistent. Some localised flooding is possible during the early hours of Monday morning. Temperatures around 7 to 9 degrees Celsius for most of us, but some patchy frost is possible across the very far north of Scotland. But a very disruptive morning rush hour period for a lot of us. Some very strong winds, severe gales up to 80 miles per hour along coastal areas of the Irish Sea. Very blustery over the Pennines and northern areas of England as well. The rain sweeps its way up into eastern areas of Scotland, where again it could be heavy and produce some localised flooding in places. Some brighter spells for southern areas of England and Wales and into Northern Ireland later on in the afternoon, but it is still going to be a very windy day here nonetheless. Temperatures between 9 and 15 degrees Celsius. Tuesday looks less disruptive than Monday, but it is still going to be on the unsettled side with a mixture of showers in there, some of those heavy with thunderstorms and hail as well. A lot of cloud for northern England into Scotland, but Northern Ireland, southern areas of England and Wales may see some sunshine in between some of those showers as well. Remaining unsettled into the second half of the week as well with further wet and windy weather. Bye-bye.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel. There's plenty more still to come on Free Speech Nation this week, including social sensations, unfiltered dilemmas and more questions from our live studio audience. But let's get a news update first from Aaron.
Thanks, Andrew. Very good evening to you. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. The Home Secretary's criticised what she's described as sick, inflammatory and criminal behaviour during the Armistice Day demonstration in London, saying further actions necessary. Hundreds of thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters marched peacefully through the capital yesterday, but the Met Police says it's actively investigating a number of possible cases of hate crime. Suella Braverman says anti-Semitic chants, placards and paraphernalia openly on display marks a new low. She praised officers for their professionalism, though, after far-right counter-protesters who were trying to confront the rally clashed with police. 9 officers were injured. The police have confirmed the vast majority of the 145 arrests on the day were counter-protesters. 7 have been charged with various offences. Well, police have released photos of 4 men it's trying to identify in relation to a racially aggravated altercation at Waterloo Station. They also want to speak to a woman over an alleged anti-Semitic hate crime at Victoria Station. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister's facing calls to sack his Home Secretary after she was accused of inflaming tensions ahead of the pro-Palestinian protests. Suella Braverman described the demonstrations as hate marches and questioned the integrity of the police for allowing yesterday's rally to go ahead. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has accused her of sowing the seeds of hate. Well, the King led the nation earlier, observing a 2-minute silence on Remembrance Day, honouring fallen soldiers. The Prince of Wales was among the senior royals in attendance. He stood behind King Charles, the monarch wearing the uniform of the Marshal of the Royal Air Force. The Prime Minister, Labour leader, they were both there at the Cenotaph in central London alongside other senior politicians and dignitaries. Hamas says it's suspending hostage negotiations because Israel continues to target Gaza's biggest hospital. The Al-Shifa medical facility in Gaza City has come under intense fire as Israeli forces close in. Israel says Hamas is using the hospital as cover for a command centre, which the militant group denies. Meanwhile, Palestinian health officials say 13 people have been killed in an Israeli airstrike on a house in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, where displaced people have been ordered to flee to. People in Northern Ireland, England and parts of Wales are being warned to batten down the hatches as Storm Debbie approaches. Heavy rain and winds of up to 80 miles an hour are expected. It comes as some parts of the country are still recovering from the effects of Storm Ciarán. Yellow alerts will be in place from 3 a.m. tomorrow morning to 6 o'clock in the evening. And the Prime Minister's marked the start of Diwali, the Hindu Festival of Light. Rishi Sunak was joined by his wife and 2 daughters, lighting candles at Downing Street. The family placed them around the steps of number 10 for the start of the 5-day celebration. It's believed the placement of lamps and candles outside homes protects against spiritual darkness and brings good luck. And on that note, that's all we have for the moment. Back with more a little later. Now it's over to Free Speech Nation.
To Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. Let's get some more questions from the audience. Our first question is from Armin. Armin, where are you? Hello.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening.
Should praising Adolf Hitler be illegal?
Yeah, it's going very heavy early on. But this is obviously protests from the Armistice Day yesterday. So one of the marchers said the phrase, Hitler knew how to deal with these people. Incredibly disturbing stuff. Let's have a listen.
Hitler knew how to deal with these people. They probably made a program so they can create a state of Israel in the expense of Palestinian.
So again, Francis, we come back to this point, you know, that is not the norm. That's not what the vast majority of those protesters would have approved of or anything like that. But again, we come back to this point of when someone's saying something like that so openly and there's no comeback from anyone, no one seems to be upset or disturbed, my view is that that means that something very disturbing and dark has been normalised within that movement.
Well, the thing that people don't want to address is this. Hamas is an extremist terrorist organisation. And like all extremist terrorist organisations, they want to establish a global Islamic caliphate, which means that they want to abolish nation states and they want to institute Sharia law. These people are extremists. Unfortunately, what we have is a situation in our country where people are very, very worried about addressing certain elements of this particular group or community because they know that they have a high propensity for violence. And people will say you can't say that, but it's true. Look at the 2018 Manchester bombings. Look at the 2019 London terrorist attack. Look at the murder of Sir David Amess.
But most Muslims in Britain would abhor those things.
Absolutely, but like I just said, there is a small percentage of that community who are incredibly anti-Semitic, incredibly violent, and are extremists.
So what do we do about that? You know, as Francis says, Hamas, in their charter, say they want to eliminate Jewish people. They're openly anti-Semitic. You can't reason with people like this, can you?
No, I don't think you can. And look at the case of the designer John Galliano. There is a point to this. When he was designing for Dior, he made anti-Semitic remarks in a cafe in Paris.
I remember this.
Yes. And Natalie Portman, who happened to be the face of the perfume, she said, well, I'm Jewish, he said this, whatever. I mean, he was drunken off his head. It's still not the point. All the alcohol does is loosen your tongue.
Yeah.
Believe me, I know. That's why I've got sore throat. I'm joking. Anyway, we'll move on. But, I'm not for that. To say that's niche is...
Well, you know, you don't hear many people saying extreme things like Hitler
But then,
knew...
do you think it's the case, then, when people are saying such extreme stuff, they know they're not going to be challenged because it is so outrageous?
Well, that's what I'm interested in. I mean, he was doing that to someone with a camera, with a mic. He obviously felt no compunction or shame about doing so and knew that the people around him would be fine with it. So that's the most extreme form of anti-Semitism. I mean, once you're invoking Hitler in a positive light, how can that be happening? I just don't understand. I'm genuinely baffled to see that openly expressed on the streets of London.
But you say that, but if you support Hamas, who are quite open about wanting to wipe Jewish people from the face of the Middle East, I mean, really, what is the difference?
Yeah.
Is there any difference?
But then there's the free speech issue. Now, I'm going to be talking to Nadine Strossen about this, because where are the limits to free speech?
Yeah.
Where would you stand on a statement such as that?
Well... I always believe that it's incitement to violence. That is the line for me.
Do you think that qualifies?
Is that an incitement to violence? I don't think it is.
It's tricky, isn't it? Where do you stand on that, Bruce? Would you say that sort of speech ought to be criminalised, or he should be able to say it?
Well, I think if you, because you say it all the time, if you're a free speech absolutist, then you can't be seen to be quashing someone else's, whether you align with their beliefs and values and all that kind of stuff. So,
yes.
I really wouldn't know.
It's tricky. We are going to get onto that in a bit, though, in my interview with Nadine Strossen, so do stick around for that. Let's get a question now from Michelle. Where's Michelle? Hi, Michelle.
Here, hi. Does the Cernabas giant display toxic masculinity?
I should say so. I hope we've got a picture of the Cernabas giant, because there it is. Now, quite a well-endowed chap. He is, obviously, as we all know, a very famous image. Now they're suggesting he dates from the Anglo-Saxon era. People thought it was pre-medieval, but this is... Anyway, wherever he comes from, some people want to cancel the image of this giant and his member from a magazine. And they claimed specifically, the critics claimed it was a symbol of toxic masculinity. Now, this is because... No, it sounds like I'm making this up. So this is the Campaign for Real Ale branch uses an image of this on the front of its magazine. The magazine's called The Giant Dongle, which I think I'm allowed to say. And but people say this is... People have complained, said this is immature masculinity. I mean, what...
It looks like a Halloween costume from Ann Summers. I mean, Joe... Are the people that are complaining about it, are their doodle smaller? Is that where it's coming from?
You think it's envy?
I think it might be doodle envy. I don't know.
The thing about this is, it's a historical monument. I think whatever... Come on, it's Anglo-Saxon.
No, it's not. Let's have a look at the image again, right? Let's have a look at that image again.
Please.
Right, OK. Bruce, it's before the watershed. There you go. If you saw a man like that, erect, with a club over his head, you would say that's toxic masculinity, Andrew.
Well, yeah, if I saw that in Waitrose, maybe. But on the hill...
But, I mean, what's the difference between Waitrose and the hill?
Because...
what more goes on up the hill?
Yeah. Well, exactly.
I think it's getting very silly now.
And the fact that he's erect as well is even more problematic, because it's clear that he's enjoying it.
Well, he might be. That's the thing. No one's picked up on the fact the nipples are weird.
Well, yeah, but you would do that, Bruce.
All right, sorry.
Because you're a sucker for detail, to be honest.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I just think it looks ridiculous. Is he in a coffin?
No, he's not in a coffin.
No, he's not. He's on a rampage.
Anyway, OK, we're going to move on. We're going to move on. We've got a question now from Carol. Where's Carol? Yeah. Hi, Carol.
Hi. Why do Just Stop Oil always attack works of art?
Yeah, so now, and this is one of Bruce's bugbears. I know we're going to get to this in a minute, because they do this often. You know, they poured that black liquid into the Trevi Fountain in Rome, for instance. They glued themselves, what was it, to the frame of Van Gogh's Sunflowers. That was in the National Gallery. So now, Just Stop Oil activists, they took some hammers and they smashed at the Rokeby Venus in the National Gallery. I don't know if we've got images of that, but it might be worth seeing if we have. Let's have a look at the images then. Let's have a look.
Women did not get the vote by voting. It is time for deeds and not words. It is time to just stop oil.
Politics is failing us. Politics failed women in 1914. If millions will die due to new oil and gas licensing, millions! If we love history, if we love art, and if we love our families, we must just stop oil.
OK, so this is 17th century painting by Velázquez. What's interesting about... I always find with these things, why is no one dragging them away? Yeah. Or why do they just let them lecture us in their posh accents? What's going on?
She wasn't posh, she was from the north. Just. He was the one that was on the flight wearing a Just Stop Oil T-shirt. Take a hammer to them. I've said that before on the show. They really, really get on my pippin. They really annoy me.
But I don't understand why they're just...
Rastafarian freaks.
But you know what they're doing...
Too much time on their hands.
What they're doing there is... Because that is the image, that was the painting that was slashed by Mary Richardson, the suffragette, back in the day, so I suppose they're trying to emulate that. Yeah. Why do they always go after artworks?
Because that's how you solve the climate crisis.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, that's what you do. You find
glue yourself to Van Gogh.
Yeah, exactly. You find a priceless work of art, you cover it in gunk, and then before you know it, the CCP will come to the table and go, you know what, you're right, we need to amend what we're doing in our country with carbon emissions.
Because if it's not a hammer, it's a can of soup.
It's normally a can of soup. The thing about this is I think there is something fundamentally anti-humanity about this movement, about this group, and that's why why they go for art, because art is the highest achievement of humankind. And I think there is a kind of misanthropy or a kind of anti-humane perspective. I think that's part of it, don't you think?
I think it's because, genuinely, I think it's because they have found this is the best way to garner attention. This is the best way to get people talking about them. And the tragedy of this movement actually is they say just stop oil and then they get on an airplane.
Yes.
And you think to yourself, OK, you're saying just stop oil. Fair enough. What's your idea?
Well, yeah, but they don't live by their own principles, do they? And do you remember they also interrupted the end of Act 1 of Les Miserables?
Like, so it's not all bad news.
For goodness. I think that's an absolute travesty. I think it was One Day More. And it was, yeah.
It's almost like you're a gay man there, Andrew, with your love of musicals.
OK, let's get another question now from Miranda. Where's Miranda? Hi, Miranda.
Hi, good evening. Did Alison Rose get what she deserved?
Yeah, this is really interesting. So, obviously, the ex-boss of NatWest, Dame Alison Rose, she's losing out a £7.6 million bonus because she admitted that she'd discussed the closure of Nigel Farage's bank account. But she is going to receive £2.4 million fixed pay package. So she's still OK, I think, isn't she?
I think she's going to scrape by, Andrew.
Yeah.
Do you know, I don't think the cost of living crisis is going to bite too deep into Alison Rose's pockets.
Yes.
I'll be honest with you, I am delighted that she has left. We need to get more of these people out of our institutions.
I mean, the thing is, the freedom of information... Oh, sort of around the applause.
There you go.
I mean, the Freedom of Information request did reveal explicitly that the bank was debanking Nigel Farage because they disagreed with his opinions. That's what it was, right?
Yeah.
So you can't live in a society. That's not a free society.
But she didn't get what she deserved because she shouldn't have got anything. That's
true, really.
She should have been sacked for gross misconduct. That's the bottom line. And we were discussing that on Friday, and this really rips my knitting. £60,000 to help her find a job. Like, again, what is she winning?
60 grand?
£60,000 to find a job. Is she in cahoots with Donatella Versace? Like, really, why does she need that much money? She's a boot.
Well, Bruce, very clear on where he stands on this. But I didn't realise... Yeah, she's getting money to help her find a job.
She's getting 60 grand to help find...
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's difficult, Francis.
Go down the job centre, love. Why does she need 60 grand
you know
for that?
Something? Use some of the 60 grand on that broom on your hair, Alison, because your hair's like a tinder box. Get conditioner on it.
She might need the bus fare. That's what, I don't know. I'm just trying to make excuses.
She could buy
now.
the bus with 60 grand.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
Miranda, what do you think about it? Do you think she should get any bonus at all?
I think she should pay compensation to everyone who has been affected.
So, for people who can't hear, Miranda thinks she should pay compensation.
I've been affected by it.
Yeah.
So have I.
Bruce definitely has. He's very upset about this. OK, let's move on now. We've got a question now from Nick. Where's Nick? Hi, Nick.
Hi. Can you suggest an alternative name for, or alternative for Karamak?
Do you like Karamak, Nick?
To be honest, I've never tried it.
No, but that's fair. I've never tried Karamak, but it's in the news at the moment. It's a type of chocolate bar, Nestle. They've discontinued it. People always get very upset when you know they haven't gone for Curly Wurly though, have they? No, that's still okay.
No, you're fine.
Fine. Okay. Oh, phew. So, but Karamak, I haven't tried Karamak. People are really upset about this.
People are really upset about it, but no, I haven't tried it either.
Has anyone in here actually tried Karamak? Alan, you've had it. Is it nice, Karamak?
It is. It's sweet, but all these things are. But,
yeah, but it's a chocolate bar.
It cracks. It's really thin.
Well, I'm not going to get too exercised about the loss of Karamak. Do you have any views on this?
No, I like cheese.
Cheese?
Yeah.
As long as they don't discontinue Wensleydale,
cheese.
Then you're absolutely fine.
Yeah.
OK. Well, look, that's all we've got time for in this section. But next on Free Speech Nation, I'm going to be speaking to Nadine Strossen, who's going to be here to explain why everybody deserves freedom of speech, even when they have intolerable views. Don't go anywhere. I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Fed up of being patronised and bored to death by other afternoon news shows? Me too. So I thought, if you want a job done properly, do it yourself. News as it breaks on TV, radio and online. All the big debates and the best guests on the topics that you actually care about. Whether you're having discussions with your mates down the pub, in your van to and from work, or around the dinner table with your family, that's the kind of stuff that this show is all about. Join me, Patrick Christie, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. The Israel-Hamas war has brought about a plethora of questions and debates, including a discussion around freedom of speech. Nadine Strossen, along with her co-writer Pamela Peretsky, have published an article entitled "Even Anti-Semites Deserve Free Speech." Nadine Strossen, who is Senior Fellow at FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, and the author of Free Speech, What Everyone Needs to Know, is here now to explain more. Nadine Strossen, welcome to the show.
I'm so happy to be here, Andrew. And
hello,
thank
Nadine.
you for your...
Can I ask you first and foremost about your article, which is a rather provocative title, the idea that even anti-Semites should be entitled to free speech. Can you explain your thinking there?
Yes, and most importantly, it is not only my thinking, Andrew, but it is the unanimous thinking of the entire United States Supreme Court going back to the middle of the 20th century, because defending freedom, even for the thought that we hate, to quote a famous Supreme Court justice, is less dangerous than giving government latitude to pick and choose which ideas are hateful and deserving of suppression. After all, this is a very subjective concept. Today in the United States, and I'm sure the same is true in Britain as well, people tend to use the epithet of hate speech toward any idea that they disagree with or find hateful. So that epithet, hate speech, has been hurled at the phrase Black Lives Matter. That's been attacked as hate speech against police officers and against white people. The phrase Blue Lives Matter in support of life of police officers has been attacked as hate speech against Black people. Indeed, the phrase All Lives Matter has been attacked as insufficiently respectful of the special challenges to equality for Black people. Andrew, really sadly, because you're such a great free speech defender as well, and by the way, I really enjoyed your performance of your book about free speech on Audible, but I'm sure you will share my horror that on a number of college campuses in the United States, the phrase free speech has been attacked as hate speech. So, you know, and another problem, I was listening to your fascinating discussion about pro-Hitler rhetoric in London, which I could not find more abhorrent as somebody who is the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, could not be more critical of anti-Semitic speech. And yet, if people have those hateful anti-Semitic ideas, it really is important for us to know that. You know, hopefully they might be open to persuasion and education. Punishing somebody is not going to change their minds, but at the very least, law enforcement will be able to monitor them and make sure that they do not actually engage in any violent or discriminatory conduct to carry out their hateful ideas.
It's very interesting you mentioned that, Nadine, because there is obviously this situation that we're at war now. There's a war going on, obviously, between Israel and Hamas. People would say that in such conditions, you have to have limitations on speech because it might inflame issues. Do you accept that there are sometimes situations where you do need these restrictions?
You know, somebody used the phrase free speech absolutists. I have never met one. The difference between those of us who strongly support free speech and others is that we, and I include the United States Supreme Court in that we insist that before government may restrict speech, there must be a compellingly important justification. It is often described as the emergency standard, that when speech directly and imminently causes or threatens certain specific serious harm, and there's no other way to prevent that harm short of punishing the speech, then government may punish the speech. And that is not an impossible standard, but it is sensibly a difficult standard. So earlier, one of your commentators was talking about incitement. The U.S. Supreme Court has said that even advocacy of violence or lawless conduct is protected. The only thing that is not protected is intentional incitement of imminent violence that is likely to happen imminently. So if somebody is more loosely using rhetoric that might at some future point potentially lead to violence, that simply gives the government too much latitude and discretion. And what it inevitably does is use that discretion to punish dissenting voices that are critical of government policies. In the United States, before the Supreme Court adopted that emergency standard, Andrew, the voices that were repressed included all advocates of equal rights, including civil rights. That speech was seen as dangerous and as threatening to the status quo and insulting to the dignity of people who were supporting Jim Crow and racial segregation. So the point is, if you want to have freedom for the thought that you love, then you have to tolerate freedom for the thought that you hate. And by the way, the most effective way to counter that hateful idea is through hearing it, refuting it, ignoring it, persuading against it, lobbying against it, making sure it is not translated into actual hateful, discriminatory violence or other conduct.
That's very interesting to hear you say that, Nadine. I think people forget that a lot, that when you clamp down on free speech, you're setting a precedent, a legal precedent, to enable the government to censor whatever speech it likes in the future. I think that's such an important point. But what about some of the critics of the marches we've had in London recently? What they have said is, what about the safety of Jewish people in London at the moment, many of whom feel they can't even walk down the streets of their own native city? What do you make of that?
I certainly support government providing safety and protection against actual physical assaults, as well as Remember, Andrew, I said not all speech is protected. Another category of speech that satisfies this emergency standard, in addition to an intentional incitement of imminent violence, is threatening speech, when the speaker intends to instill a reasonable fear on the part of particular targeted audience members that they will be subject to violence. Even if the speaker doesn't intend to carry out the violence, the mere fact that you reasonably fear violence means not only is your own free speech violated, because you then don't dare speak up, but even your freedom of movement. As you say, if you're afraid to go out because you're afraid that you're going to be subject to an assault, that government has a responsibility to protect you against that kind of reasonable fear. And appropriately, here in the United States, just a week or so ago, we had a student on a college campus, university campus, Cornell, arrested and subject to federal criminal prosecution because of threats that he put out on the internet that were specifically targeting the Jewish community at Cornell. That was appropriately seen as a punishable true threat, subjecting him to arrest. But when we're talking about hateful rhetoric that simply makes you, abhor the idea, but not feel that you are going to be subject to an immediate physical attack, it is not appropriate to punish that speaker. And I would also argue, Andrew, it's not an effective way to counter the actual attitude. There are many, many case studies of people who formerly supported hateful ideologies, who have repudiated those beliefs, and who are now devoting their lives to trying to stop other people from going in that direction. In the United States, we have a whole organization called Life After Hate, and all of these people say that what worked was when people, not punishing them, not even shunning and shaming and canceling them, but reaching out to them to try to get them to criticize and question and revisit their own views, to get to know people in the groups that they believe that they hate, to break down those prejudices and stereotypes. That kind of educational approach is not guaranteed to work in every situation, but history shows that punitive censorship is guaranteed to fail.
Well, Nadine Strossen, thank you ever so much for joining me tonight. Really appreciate it. And Nadine's book, which is called Free Speech, What Everyone Needs to Know, is out now. I would thoroughly recommend it. Do check that out. I'd like to bring in Bruce and Francis now to get their thoughts on this. Francis, it's very interesting hearing Nadine. Nadine was president of the ACLU in the 90s and early 2000s, and the ACLU very famously defended the right of neo-Nazis to march in Skokie in Chicago in the late 70s. And a man called Arya Naya wrote a book about that, who was the president of the ACLU at the time, called Defending My Enemy. He's a Jewish man, saying the reason why he wants them to have the right to march is so they can expose those horrendous views. Nadine made that point, that actually hearing that man on the street praising Hitler, well, at least we know that these views are being held. At least we can do something about it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, look, I completely agree with that. And it's always nice to see Jeremy Corbyn interviewed. You know what I mean?
Francis Foster, he's not here to defend himself.
Right. But I really do believe that, because it is vitally important that when there is this undercurrent of hatred, that it gets the daylight that it so clearly needs. Because if we just force it more and more underground, it will be festering there, and you will give these people a legitimacy and a glamour they simply don't deserve.
So that's the point, isn't it, Bruce? I mean, what do you make of this? It is horrible hearing these people praising Hitler, saying openly anti-Semitic things. But is Nadine right that actually the fact that we know that they're there is kind of helpful?
I think the most interesting thing that she said to me was she doesn't know a free speech absolutist in its entirety. You know what I mean? You get these people that preach being puritanical, and they're not at all. Like, and I know that people have views on this channel and us participating and all that kind of stuff. They don't watch it, there's no discussion, it's just that's bad. And you're like, you can't just come from there.
Yeah.
It's a bit like the SNP screaming about the Tories.
Yeah, you've got to hear more. You've got to hear every side.
You catch more flies with honey.
Well, He always has a lovely, beautiful phrase to end on. But look, still to come on Free Speech Nation, a welcome or unwelcome dose of biological reality. We're talking about the impact that gender identity ideology is having on our society. In just a couple of minutes, don't go anywhere.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. My next guest is author and journalist James Esses. He is the co-founder of the Declaration for Biological Reality, who describe themselves as a group of concerned citizens who have concerns about the impact that gender identity ideology is having on our society. So here to explain more is the man himself, James. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andrew.
I should say welcome back to the show. James, tell us a bit about what the Declaration for Biological Reality is all about.
So look, myself and these signatory organisations have simply had enough of gender ideology infiltrating society. We've got children being medicalised and left infertile. We've got students being taught that it's possible to be trapped in the wrong body. We've got the word woman being erased from our dictionary. We've got women's sports and safe spaces being infiltrated. We've got gay children being taught that actually they might be straight but trapped in the wrong body. And we've got people losing their courses, jobs and livelihoods for daring to say that a man cannot become a woman. So as far as we're concerned, it has simply gone too far. We had to say something.
It does feel out of control. I should say for transparency that I am a signatory of the declaration as well. Now, the reason I've signed it is for all of the reasons you've just outlined there. But I also get very frustrated and I think, why have we reached the point where we need a group of people to come up with a declaration of biological reality in order to get this message across to the government? What the hell is going on?
No, it's crazy. This shouldn't be required at all, and it tells you how far we've sunk as a society, because this should be the status quo, that we understand that sex is binary and immutable. But unfortunately, over the last few years, groups like Stonewall have infiltrated our public sector, our media, even our private corporations, and have put forward this kind of dangerous and divisive ideology and sold a myth and a lie to those out there.
I mean, I take the view, James, because I'm a liberal, and I believe that people should be able to have whatever beliefs they want, right up to the point that it impacts on other people's rights. So I think if you do believe that there are multiple sexes or genders, and if you do believe that you can change sex, and if you do believe you have an innate gendered soul which doesn't match your body, you're free to have that belief. But once you start saying women can no longer have their single-sex spaces, gay kids need to be targeted and fixed, heterosexualised medically, then I think we need to step in. Is that a fair point?
That's the cut-off point. But we've seen, even just yesterday, we saw it publicised online, this lesbian being, interviewed under caution by the police for daring to misgender someone and dare to say that a man cannot become a woman. Lesbian speed dating events being cancelled because they're not allowing biological men there. This is infiltrating, infringing upon the rights of all the rest of us. I mean, it's crazy.
And when you say it like that, it does sound insane, but this is people don't understand how widespread it is, I think. Now, this has gone round. There are a number of parliamentarians looking at this declaration.
Yes.
Is it going to make a difference? Is it, because I wonder, and I wonder if you can help me on this, I keep getting the impression that actually a lot of MPs don't understand the issues. I really do feel that.
It's done the rounds. I mean, we've had a range of signatories from across left and right. It's mostly Conservative MPs that have signed it, to be fair. But to be honest, quite a few parliamentarians have messaged me privately and said that they're too afraid to sign it, which is concerning, given their position, actually. If they can't speak out in favour of reality and truth, who can? Well,
we've even had Conservative MPs saying that they're going to rebel against the government because they dropped the ban on conversion therapy, what they call trans conversion therapy. But of course, as I spoke to Dennis Kavanagh about this on this show, the problem is that if you oppose a ban on trans conversion therapy, you're effectively promoting gay conversion therapy in a way. And this is, well, explicitly, but this is not understood by the parliamentarians.
No. And that is the real conversion therapy, and selling this myth to children that if you hate a part of yourself, you should undergo irreversible hormonal treatment or surgery and become the person that you were destined to be. That is the real conversion therapy. But the conversion therapy bill is not off the cards. It's come top of the table for the House of Lords private member bills, so they could still try and force it through.
Scary stuff. Now, look, you've mentioned there that a lot of Conservative people have signed the document. That's caused some problems, hasn't it?
It has. I've had people messaging me saying they won't sign it because there's too many right-wing people signing the declaration. I've had people saying they won't sign it because they disagree with one of the signatories. I've even had people message me and say that they won't sign it because I'm a bloke and that I should leave it to the women to sort out.
But this is something that affects everyone. It affects absolutely everyone in society.
I've said time and time again, we all have skin in this game. Every single one of us is impacted by this, whether it's women's rights, children's safeguarding, free speech, but actually even just upholding reality. We as human beings flourish if we embrace reality. If we embrace delusion, we all suffer as a result.
I mean, that's very dispiriting to hear that, because for me, this is not an issue of left and right. This should be non-partisan. This should be something where sensible people from all sides of the political spectrum can agree. So what's going on in society, therefore, where people think, oh, there will be guilt by association if someone who disagrees with me on some other issues signs this declaration?
We're living in a world of cancel culture, Andrew. And in some ways I don't blame people, because they fear that people will come for their jobs and come for their reputations. It's true. Like, people may well come for them. I've tried to emphasise to people that we're anonymising all public signatures. But even then, people are scared. People have come to me saying, what about if the system gets hacked? This is how terrified people are of simply saying that men cannot become women. I mean, it's crazy.
So the solution then is through Parliament, through law, through the judiciary? I mean, this is how we solve it, isn't it?
It's through law. The Equality Act needs to make it clear that sex is biological sex. Similarly, with the Gender Recognition Act, we need to make sure that this is out of schools. We need to make sure that sports are banning men from competing against women. We need to make sure that people are not being fired from their jobs for believing in biological reality. And we need to be upholding LGBT rights and same-sex attraction in society. So there's various different avenues to go through. But, I mean, it's not going to be easy. This was just trying to open the dialogue up. But, we've got a long way to go.
So is it just that people don't understand the issues, or is it that they're scared? Because there's a bit of both going on, isn't there?
I mean, I think if you were to ask your average person on the street, you know, can a man become a woman? I think they would say very clearly, no, they can't. I'd say for most people, they don't see it as particularly relevant to themselves. They try and keep themselves out of the debate because it's become quite toxic. At the end of the day, people have lost friendships, even romantic relationships over disagreeing over these points. So I think people try and keep themselves to themselves. So I think we need to encourage society to appreciate that this affects all of us.
Yes.
For me, this is actually the issue of our time.
It's a huge issue, and I think people don't recognise the impact this has on various minority groups' rights. Gay rights in particular is a worry for me. The fact that, as you mentioned, a lesbian speed dating event can be shut down because it refuses to have men there. I mean, it's so absurd, but there is a kind of demonising of gay people now going on, which needs to be addressed.
I mean, it's crazy to be accused of being transphobic for being same-sex attracted, because you're not attracted to somebody else's gender. I mean, it's madness.
But people say that phrase is transphobic, same-sex attracted. I've heard that.
I thought we were becoming a kind of tolerant, liberal society, but actually we're way back in the bad old days.
Yeah, it is. We are going back by decades, aren't we? Anyway, James Esses, thanks very much for joining me today. Really appreciate it. So still to come on Free Speech Nation, we're going to be bringing you the videos that have gone viral this week, and plus we'll be answering your unfiltered dilemmas. So if you've got any problems, do keep emailing in. See you in a moment.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On Mark Dolan tonight from 10 as we remember our fallen heroes from 2 world wars. What would they make of the hate playing out on Britain's streets? Did they give their lives in vain? And as pressure grows on the Home Secretary, should Suella Braverman stay or go? I'll be asking former Home Office Minister Anne Widdecombe. Plus, Prince Harry pays the ultimate price and misses Remembrance Sunday. Reaction from fearless royal journalist Angela Levin, who has harsh words for the Prince. We're live at 10.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. And it's time for Social Sensations. That's the part of the show where we look at what's been going viral this week on social media. Exciting stuff. First up, a new social media phenomenon. Capturing the moment, football club mascots join in with the minute silence at a football match. Here's a video. That's sweet, isn't it? Francis, do you think that's respectful or...?
I think it's very respectful. Yeah, I like it.
Because you can't do anything dressed like that without looking a bit stupid.
No, you can't.
No.
My favourite is when mascots fight. Have you seen that?
No, does that happen?
Yeah, it happens, yeah. There's a couple of them that get really aggressive with one another and they start having a punch-up.
What, like in Disneyland?
Yeah, no, the opposition mascots in the football.
No.
Yeah, you do. You get like a hammer beating the hell out of a swan. It's great.
I've never seen that, Bruce. Have you seen that kind of thing?
I don't think that's where we hang. I don't think any of that sporting stuff is necessarily aimed at us.
No, I mean...
Well, you're missing out, Bruce.
That elephant, I can imagine that
getting...
getting...
badminton, love a shuttlecock.
OK, next up, we've got this video. This is a woman declaring her love for her boyfriend by tattooing his name on her forehead. Let's have a look.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Okay. Oh my God! I love it. Oh, Kevin's gonna love it.
Now, wait a minute, that's got to be henna, right? That's not permanent.
I didn't think so. The funny thing was, I thought, not only have you been stupid enough to do that, because she was really, really creasing her forehead, I thought, please go and get some Botox. This is offensive to look at. Now, Kevin has left her. Kevin has already left her, yes.
Because of that?
I think so.
Well, I don't blame him.
Well, I think it's ridiculous. But do you know what I don't understand? Why would you, if that is real, why would you disfigure yourself in that way?
But then I suppose she thought it was going to be for life and that Kevin was always going to be there.
I'm lying. I don't know Kevin.
Oh, you don't know?
I don't know her. I just think she's a fool.
Do you think, I mean, what happens, though, if Kevin does leave? It's going to be awkward. Isn't it awkward anyway? How do you
No, it's not. You just get another boyfriend called Kevin.
And that's the only way to do it?
That's the only way to deal with it.
How do you get a job with... How do you get a job interview with the word Kevin on your head?
Ask Rose from Nat West. She'll get a job. Did you pay £60,000 for that?
Yeah.
Boot.
That's ridiculous. I always thought of that whenever I saw George Clooney in From Dusk Till Dawn. You know, he's got that very sexy neck tattoo, but I thought, like, what are you going to do? Go into a job interview with... I suppose
You're
George...
such a conservative, Andrew. It's unbelievable.
I mean,
you saw George Clooney with a neck tattoo, who you just admitted was sexy, and the first thing that you thought of was, how is he going to get a job?
Well, yeah. How is George Clooney going to get a job? Because I wouldn't employ him looking like that.
What? Also in ER, and who was I with yesterday? Alex Kingston. So it's all linked.
It's all linked. We do that on this show. Lots of linked themes.
So much cohesion.
Yes, so much depth. It's like peeling an onion. Anyway, finally, we've got a woman now on TikTok. What's this? TikTok switched manifesting for being delusional. I don't know what that phrase means, but I'm excited to find out. Let's have a look.
I truly believe the easiest way to become confident is by gaslighting yourself. This is how I gaslit myself into becoming a confident bad bitch. Number one, if a man doesn't like me, I just assume they're gay. Like, I'm literally the coolest, hottest, prettiest person in the entire world. There's quite literally no other reason not to be obsessed with me. Number two, stop criticizing others. What you criticize in others is what you hate about yourself. If you're always criticizing others for, like, their bodies, you're probably insecure about your body. If you're constantly criticizing others about their intelligence, you're probably a little insecure about your intelligence.
OK, she's got the most annoying voice in the world. But
I'm going to be honest with you, I prefer the woman who had the Kevin tattooed on her head.
Yeah, much more. What is this about this genre of young people on TikTok sort of hectoring and lecturing people like they know everything? It's really annoying.
Yeah, and it's also, it's not even that. It's just she is the most repellent person.
I suppose, well, it's just narcissism. I mean, there's a lot of narcissists about these days.
Yeah.
I'm looking at one right now.
Really? Back at you. I'm not a narcissist.
No, I know
I'm
you're
stupid, though.
Now, let's move on to your unfiltered dilemmas. This is where you've sent in all of your personal problems. I'm very grateful. Our first dilemma came in from Beth, and Beth has said, my friend's housemate has found bed bugs in their room. We're due to see each other in a few weeks' time. Is it wrong of me to cancel? Now, you know, these have been popping up in France. Apparently, a lot of concerns that there's a bed bug infestation in Paris. It's going to come over here. They're grotesque creatures, aren't they? They're horrible. Would you cancel if you knew someone had bed bugs? Really?
Yeah, I wouldn't go round to someone's house.
If you knew it, that they were just even
no,
there.
if they were in, I'd be like that. No, it's not for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Because they're not microscopic, are they? You can actually see them.
They're about 0.5 millimetre, and they're little red, little red creatures when they're filled with blood. But also,
well, they change colour when they're filled with blood.
Yeah, when they're filled with blood. But it also,
that's horrendous.
They're like mobile hemorrhoids.
Yeah, exactly. They are. They are. But
I must write that down.
Yes. Good.
Francis, finish your sentence.
I was going to say, I can't match that now, can I?
What do we do about them? But what should Beth do? You know, she.
Well, it depends. So is it? So as well, we're due to see each other. No, you only do it if you know you're going to get some nookie and it's going to be great.
Well, it's not just in the beds, though, is it? The bugs can travel.
Well, yeah, bugs can travel everywhere.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely horrendous. I think it's awful. Anyway, let's move on to another dilemma. This is from Carla. That's a name we haven't heard in a while.
I know.
Yeah, I like that name.
Coronation Street.
Carla, a pipe burst near me yesterday and there was water everywhere. I drove past a guy walking in puddles up to his ankles and stopped to give him a lift. But when I saw how filthy his jeans had got, I drove off instead. Bad form, Bruce.
First of all, that never happened.
You don't think?
Well done, Carla. That is hysterical. I think she's the delusional one from TikTok.
Right.
But I wouldn't blame her if she saw someone's manky jeans and thought, I don't give people lifts. I don't want the manky epidermis on my plush. It's
exactly. Why is it they've got mobile hemorrhoids?
Well, exactly. That's the whole thing.
I like to think that we trust the people who email in. I like to think she's telling the truth. And given that she's telling the truth, Bruce, what do you think, Francis?
My name is... What? Bruce Francis?
Well, I was having a dig at him for doubting her veracity.
OK, got you. So, no, I'm with Bruce.
Oh. OK, you wouldn't pick up someone with manky jeans?
No.
No?
It's disgusting.
OK,
yeah,
fair
there's
enough.
no need.
Yeah, be presentable if you want to get
a
lift.
wash.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good hygiene advice. That's what this programme's all about. Now, let's move on to our final dilemma. This is from Dave. Dave says, my younger colleagues keep sending me voice notes, meaning I have to find, then untangle my earphones. Before you say it, I know I'm ancient for not having AirPods. I was about to say that. But how do I stop making them send voice notes? I don't have a problem with voice notes.
I love a voice note because I am so dyslexic. I leave you voice notes all the time. Yes.
You do? I appreciate it.
No, I do. I think it's so much easier.
Yeah.
I call him and he never gets back to me.
Oh, she's round my gaff all the time.
Francis, I do get back to... Look, this isn't the forum to resolve...
Henrietta hemorrhoid.
What do you make of it? Do you like the voice notes? I mean, it is sometimes quicker, isn't it? You know, if you're going to type out a big, long message...
It depends on the voice note. If it's short and concise, brilliant. If it's one of these long, rambling ones that you see, you're like, 3 minutes... What are you doing? You're going to give me a Shakespearean monologue for 3 minutes?
But you do it on times 2 in the same way that's how you listen to an audiobook. That woman didn't admit that with your book, did she? Yeah, I loved listening to it. Yeah, you were on speed at the time.
Were they? They put me on times 2?
Yeah,
but then you don't get the nuances in my voice.
Oh, no, you do.
Do you?
You sound gay at any speed.
Bruce Devlin! This is why we have him on, for these outrageous comments.
Yeah.
I'm appalled. I don't know where we can go from that, Bruce. So I'm just going to bring the show to a close on that.
I could guest present if you like.
Well, maybe some other week. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us for Free Speech Nation. This was the week when we saw very disturbing scenes on the streets of London. The King's speech wasn't as environmentally friendly as many people had hoped, and a well-endowed Anglo-Saxon giant came under fire. Thank you so much to my lovely panel, Bruce Devlin and Francis Foster, and to all the guests that you've seen on tonight's show. And by the way, if you want to join us live in the studio, be part of our wonderful studio audience, it's easily done. There's a website on the screen right now. It's www.sroaudiences.com. Do come along. We've got wine, we've got food, we've got sausage rolls, all kinds of things. Do stay tuned for the Dinosaur Hour. That's coming up next. John Cleese is talking to various people about the notion of wokeness, and a lot of people don't understand it. So do watch that show because it will clarify a lot of your issues. And don't forget that Headliners is on every night at 11 o'clock. That's our paper preview show with comedians taking you through the next day's top news stories. Thanks so much for watching Free Speech Nation. See you next week.
Hello there.
Good evening, I'm Jonathan Hawtrey here, your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Many of us will be waking up to a very unsettled start to the new working week, and that is due to Storm Debbie. This area of low pressure that is very quickly going to deepen overnight and into tomorrow, producing some very strong winds, particularly directly on the southern flank of that for northern areas of England, coastal areas of the Irish Sea. Throughout this evening, we do have one band of rain sweeping its way across Scotland, but it's this rain in the southwest that is associated with Storm Debbie. Some very heavy pulses for England, Wales and into Northern Ireland, where it could be very persistent. Some localised flooding is possible during the early hours of Monday morning. Temperatures around 7 to 9 degrees Celsius for most of us, but some patchy frost is possible across the very far north of Scotland. But a very disruptive morning rush hour period for a lot of us. Some very strong winds, severe gales up to 80 miles per hour along coastal areas of the Irish Sea. Very blustery over the Pennines and northern areas of England as well. The rain sweeps its way up into eastern areas of Scotland, where again it could be heavy and produce some localised flooding in places. Some brighter spells for southern areas of England, Wales and into Northern Ireland later on in the afternoon, but it is still going to be a very windy day here nonetheless. Temperatures between 9 and 15 degrees Celsius. Tuesday looks less disruptive than Monday, but it is still going to be on the unsettled side with a mixture of showers in there, some of those heavy with thunderstorms and hail as well. A lot of cloud for northern England into Scotland, but Northern Ireland, southern areas of England and Wales may see some sunshine in between some of those showers as well. Remaining unsettled into the second half of the week as well with further wet and windy weather. Bye-bye.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Fed up of being patronised and bored to death by other afternoon news shows? Me too. So I thought, if you want a job done properly, do it yourself. News as it breaks on TV, radio and online. All the big debates and the best guests on the topics that you actually care about. Whether you're having discussions with your mates down the pub, in your van to and from work, or around the dinner table with your family, that's the kind of stuff that this show is all about. Join me, Patrick Christie, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.